Your thoughts, they can control your heartbeat, man. If you start thinking about good things, you feel good. You can self-motivate. Nobody injects dopamine into your head. She's in there.
You have to activate it.
And then to activate it, you need to know what you want.
What happens?
In the 70s and 80s, people realized that dopamine was actually released when a mouse ate something delicious. Oh, and they associated, wait a minute, dopamine has to do with pleasure. Dopamine has to do with reward. In the 90s, researchers did another experiment that basically, it showed that if the mouse presses the lever and receives the food, the chance of pressing the lever again is greater, because it was rewarded. So you come here, make a program, the program is great, well, I'll go there again, it was cool. And the people started to associate, wait a minute, so I'm going to do the behavior, I'm going to get the reward, and the dopamine was released, and that's it. In the 1970s, neuroscientists. In the 90s, people started to want to understand this better. He said, wait a minute, is that really it, man? Is dopamine released when I get the reward? What they did, they trained a little monkey to do what? First they taught the little monkey that if he presses a lever 10 times T-sheek, 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 a little food falls out. I think it's grape juice, they love it. Apple juice. They like it, so the little monkey associated pressing the lever with the reward. They taught this task to the monkey, then they blocked the lever. The little monkey pressed it and no juice came. Then they started to teach the little monkey that the lever was only released to press wine juice when a light was turned on in the ceiling of the room. So the little monkey was there, he turned on the light on the ceiling of the room, he goes there, presses 10 times and receives the reward. They placed electrodes on the little monkey's head, in a region called the nucleus accumbens, and they began to measure the dopaminergic system, the neurons that produce dopamine, to see where dopamine increases. Is it when the little monkey receives the grape juice, when he presses the lever, or when he sees the light? And they noticed that when the little monkey gets the reward and presses the lever, there's almost no dopamine in his brain.
Is it anticipation?
Dopamine has to do with anticipation. That's one of the best definitions of dopamine, Arthur. Dopamine is released when you anticipate a reward. So when the little monkey saw the light, man, dopamine exploded in his head. When he was pressing the lever, performing the behavior to receive the reward, there was almost no dopamine left. When he got the reward, just a little bit of dopamine went up. Imagine you are watching a movie. When you see the guy eating the pizza in the movie, or smoking a cigarette, that's the light for the little monkey. Your dopamine explodes. Dopamine takes you to the behavior of picking up your cell phone, opening iFood and ordering pizza. When the pizza arrives, you even think, man, why did I order that? But dopamine is mostly about anticipation of a possible reward. Why possible reward? Because after the little monkey starts to realize that whenever he turns on the light I will receive the reward, that is, the reward has a 100% chance of coming to me, the dopamine starts to decrease at all times. That is, our brain adapts very easily to rewards. So if today I recorded a podcast that got 50,000 views, tomorrow 50,000 views is right for me. After morning I don't even want 50 views anymore. You want more. That's dopamine. And the researchers showed this how? They showed that if you change the number of times the monkey receives the reward to 50%, the monkey's dopamine increases when the light is on, but when he is working to get the reward, the dopamine increases even more than when the light is on. Lit. Because maybe the payoff will come.
Oh, give him a question.
It is not right.
I understood.
Dopamine is what? Dopamine is released when we seek a possible reward. Dopamine is released for you to go after, for you to pursue. That is her function, not survival. Even patients with Parkinson's, who have motor problems, have a death of neurons in one of the dopaminergic systems, which is the nigrostriatal. That is, dopamine, in addition to making you motivated to go, it also makes your movement happen. She makes you go, man. Dopamine, it has to do, that people don't understand, it doesn't have to do with the reward, it has to do with you going to the reward. When you have the reward, it's already low. So dopamine is what makes you work on a script. Dopamine is what makes you podcast. Dopamine is what makes you want more. Dopamine has to do with seeking reward outside of yourself. Dopamine has to do with motivation. And when dopamine goes up, there's another neurotransmitter that goes up called norepinephrine.
Adrenalina.
It is the adrenaline that we release in the body and brain, called noradrenaline or norepinephrine. So think with me, dopamine goes up, giving you a sense of direction. Speaking like this, man, go this way, that's where the reward is. It's behind that mountain that the business is. Go go. And she gives you this sense of guy, I want to go. And noradrenaline increases to give you agitation and anxiety and a little bit of stress. Then you have the perfect combo, man. You have the norepinephrine combo, which increases your focus, increases your pursuit, increases your ability to have strength, energy, physics, and you have dopamine, which increases your ability to understand the direction of the reward. You become a reward-seeking machine. But there is a problem, the problem when only noradrenaline increases and dopamine does not. Then you get agitated, you get restless, you keep wanting to do something, but you don't have the dopamine to give you the direction of where to go. And that person who is at home, sits down to study in the afternoon, is extremely agitated, extremely restless, extremely stressed and anxious, but dopamine is low and the person has no motivation to study. So you have a whole metabolic repertoire to do some action, to have some behavior, but you don't have the direction, you don't know which way to go. When dopamine increases, noradrenaline almost always increases. Noradrenaline, when it increases, dopamine does not always increase. You keep wanting to do something, but you don't have the dopamine to give you the direction of where to go. And that person who is at home, sits down to study in the afternoon, is extremely agitated, extremely restless, extremely stressed and anxious, but dopamine is low and the person has no motivation to study. So you have a whole metabolic repertoire to do some action, to have some behavior, but you don't have the direction, you don't know which way to go. When dopamine increases, noradrenaline almost always increases. Noradrenaline, when it increases, dopamine does not always increase. So, dopamine has a little to do with pleasure, but it has to do with pleasure that you need to look for. The expectation of pleasure. Exactly. Our pleasure, we work with another system, which is called serotonin.
A serotonina tem a ver com o que você tem agora, com o que você gosta, com o que você tem o aqui.
Serotonin has to do with moments of current pleasure, now. So, man, I built a podcast that has 160k subscribers, 160 subscribers. When you realize that and you feel really good about it, your serotonin goes up. But what about when I see this, I don't feel good? Then your dopamine increases and noradrenaline, which you want more. But man, is this a problem? I think that in my analysis, the successful person is the person who manages to be dopaminergic and noradrenergic during the day and serotonergic at night. So during the day you go after a reward, you wake up, you're motivated, go, go, go. And at night you think like this, man, I did my best, I'm going in the right direction, I've already conquered a lot, I'm good, I like it, I like what I do. Your serotonin goes up. You can do this during the week. Your dopamine goes up all week and your serotonin goes up over the weekend and dopamine goes down. That is, that person who oscillates between an extreme motivation and an extreme pursuit of something and goes into an absurd relaxation. That is, you know, that person who goes and then on weekend relax and think about how this person can rest. A lot of problems to solve next week, the person resting. This is a person who has active control of the dopaminergic system and the serotonin system. Can I manipulate serotonin by thinking and talking? He has. I like this thing. He has.
As pessoas,
This is not very natural for people to understand, gang, but you can. Your thoughts, they can control your heartbeat, man, almost.
se você começar a pensar em muita coisa ruim, você tem taquicardia.
If you start thinking about good things, you feel good. The prefrontal cortex is a two-way street for these regions that release serotonin and dopamine. You can self-motivate.
Vá.
Nobody injects dopamine into your head. She's in there. You have to activate it. And then to activate it, you need to know what you want. You have to have a horizon, an objective, a goal, where you want to get to and how we are going to do to get there. And let's motivate ourselves to do this. And the motivation has to do with the visualization of the situation. I'm on my doctorate, I want to get to a specific place and I need to visualize myself there. It boosts my dopamine, but I also need to relax a little. But this ability to visualize is what?
Porque
Why, what part of the brain is doing this? Prefrontal cortex. Is it all there? Everything there. But it's just like you visualize yourself in the market. It's just there. For example, take a person. How many celebrities have depression? Man, many famous people have depression. Look on the internet, there are several famous people who have depression. Then you think like this, but this filthy rich person has everything. He has the family, I don't know what, and he has depression. Sometimes people don't stop to see what they have and are always looking for more. Or you can't value what you have. But isn't being on the lookout for more good for keeping the dopamine going? It's good to keep the dopamine working, but because noradrenaline goes up too, this can make you sick in the long run. If you get too agitated, because you start to lose sleep, you start to have social losses. Your girlfriend fights with you because you don't pay enough attention.
Oh, but that's normal. Even if you don't. It is not.
So it's important that you strike a balance between your dopamine, that sense of reaching out, and your serotonin of like. When you're at home and have your parents there, your mother, your sister, your friend, when you're close, it's a feeling that I have enough here for me. And this is mediated by serotonin. There are antidepressants that work on these classes of neurotransmitters. You have antidepressants that only increase dopamine, you have antidepressants that increase noradrenaline, and you have antidepressants that increase serotonin. And it has to be. Why? Dopamine and noradrenaline, being action-oriented neurotransmitters, do. If you take a patient with depression and his psychiatrist, his doctor, recommends a prescription for him, an antidepressant that increases dopamine and noradrenaline, and this patient has, for example, insomnia, it's not cool, because the patient, well, it goes stay more alert, but I want something. And if the patient, for example, sleeps a lot, it's not cool to give serotonin because serotonin is more related to this calm, like, calm. You have the things you want. Man, you have a podcast of 160,000. No, but I want more, so calm down. Let's do it like this. Saturday and Sunday you contemplate what you genuinely have, and on a weekday we're going to wake up and we're going to increase dopamine and noradrenaline to run after 200,000 and 1 million. And this characteristic of dopamine being released by the signal that you seek pleasure is what explains addiction. The person who has an addiction, for example, the person who uses drugs, uses cocaine, many times he doesn't like to do that. She tells you, man, I hate it. But he can't stop. Why? Because dopamine is not released when she does that. Also, cocaine works by increasing dopamine. It blocks, in short, the dopamine is acting longer.
Makes you want to follow your dreams after A.
No, it doesn't. But when dopamine increases, when the person sees the friend they always use, when people drink, they have a problem with alcohol, they see the bar, their dopamine increases. So to treat chemical dependency, for example, if you don't change the person's context, it's very difficult to treat. And this stop of maybe the payoff becomes what explains gaming addiction. Man, casino, the guys are masters in understanding the dopaminetic system. Maybe after I turn this lever here, my life will change and your dopamine is exploding. And your dopamine shuts everything down and you can't think straight and you're like, man, this is a 1 in 1,000 chance of winning. No, but I'm going to try because there is. That's why you can never celebrate so much. Who says this? An American neuroscientific popularizer named Andrew Huberman. He says that when he was an undergraduate he was helping a researcher who supervised his experiments, and this article that he was helping was published in Science, and he explains that when he published it, man, he was extremely happy, and the advisor told him, we won't celebrate either a dinner or a party, maybe not, and then he explains that you can't celebrate your victories so much, because otherwise there will be a dopamine crash. What happens? You're chasing 1 million in a drift and your album was 1 million and your dopamine